My name's Nic Mutter. I am an ops manager with MKC6 in Kansas City, Missouri. Today I have my father with me today. And in honor of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we will be cooking some recipes for some dinner tonight. We are looking to make Bumbu Bali. We will also be making some shrimp chips, which is called krupu. And so in order to get started, some of the ingredients that you're going to need some beef broth. You're going to need some olive oil to deep fry the fish, or it's not the fish, but the chips. We also have some tomatoes. This is about a half cup of tomatoes. We also have some minced garlic. We have 8 eggs that we will be boiling later on. We also have 2 cups of rice. And we also have some lean beef. So you can use a couple different things. You can either use a beef tenderloin. For the sake of this exercise, we did a beef rump roast, right? I believe. And in order to do the beef rump roast, once we got it, you want very lean meat. We actually took the rump roast and we cut all of that off on the side of the meat. And then once we were done cutting the meat up, we cut in about 1-inch pieces that we'll want to take and we'll put into the roast.
Nope, we will brown
these first. So these are all the ingredients that we have with us right now. For the sake of people watching the recipe, one of the things that we're using is we do have a Bumbu Bali seasoning mix, which is actually right here. You actually can get this on Amazon. We will put a link on Amazon for the seasoning mix, just for the sake of anyone who wants to make this recipe, make it a little bit easier for them. So now I believe we can go ahead and we can get started. And first we're going to start with the meat. So what exactly are we going to do first here, Father?
Okay, so folks, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab some, it's pure vegetable oil, not olive oil. And this is to saute the meat, which I'm going to put over here. We're also going to use the Indonesian spices, the tomatoes, and also the garlic. So to begin with, what we're going to do is you need a pot at least this big. And the reason we're using this big of a pot is normally you would use water to make sure that you simmer the meat in water, but I have chosen beef broth because I prefer beef broth. It's got a little bit more flavor than just using water. So we'll start by turning on the stove. I'm just going to use maybe like 2 teaspoons of oil. What you want to do then is you can put the tomatoes in here. The garlic. And the Bumbu Bali Indonesian spice. Now what we're doing right now is we wanted to heat it up so it starts to simmer a little bit. And what you want to do is to get the fragrance and get the spices all heated up, you want to cook it for maybe about a minute before you start adding the beef. Now that the spices have heated up a little bit and the fragrance of it, you can smell it. It smells delicious. We will add the meat. Now all we're doing for a while here is we're letting the meat brown it. So this will take a little bit, but you want to make sure that you take the meat and you try to coat it with as much of the spices as you possibly can. So as you have it on the stove, just mix it. You can leave it sit for a little bit so the meat gets brown. It'll take a little bit. Right now I have the heat on pretty high, and the reason I have it on high because you're not really trying to cook the meat all the way through. That will be done in the simmering process once we add the beef broth. What we're trying to do is basically brown it a little bit and just get the spices all fired up and get it into the meat. Now that the meat has been fully browned, there's a lot of juices that came out of the meat with the spices. If you smell this, you can really smell the beautiful spices that are coming up out of this. However, the reason we put beef broth in there, and we'll simmer this now for probably about 2.5 hours, because that meat will become so tender that it'll fall apart in your mouth. You don't want chewy meat. And by simmering it in this beef broth, which I'm going to add right now. Now, this is 48 fluid ounces. I'm going to put about half of it in here. Through the cooking process for 2.5 hours of simmering, what will happen is some of it will evaporate. And as it goes through the day, I'll watch it periodically, and as it evaporates, I will just continue to add more beef broth. Now, you can also add water if you would like, but I prefer, like I said, the beef broth. It gives it a little bit more flavor. So now I've had it on high. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cover on it. I'm going to turn it on low so it just does a slow simmer for the next 2.5 hours. About an hour into simmering, if I need to add more beef broth, I will add more beef broth, but also I will taste it. And what I'm looking for is to see if it's spicy enough for me, because Indonesian food is a little bit spicy. What I have here is this, it's called spicy stewed beef spice. It's already in a paste. And what I'll do is maybe add a tablespoon of it at a time and retaste it again, maybe in another half hour, to see if the flavor is what I'd like it to be.
So while we're waiting for this Bumbu Bali to simmer, we're gonna get started and we're gonna make some hard-boiled eggs. So right now I've already have a pot of boiling water. I did add a little bit of salt that'll help with a little bit of the cracking of the eggs. Right now we have the water at a boiling. I have right now about 8 eggs that I'm going to place in the water. Once I have the water, we're going to keep it at a boil, and I'm going to look to put it roughly at about 12 minutes for hard-boiled eggs, because that's what we're looking for at this time. So I'm going to do this pretty slowly because we don't want any of those eggs to crack. Right now I have all the eggs in, so we're going to set the timer right now for 12 minutes. While the eggs are boiling for this 12 minutes, I'm going to come back over here. We are going to cut up a couple of quick onions just for a little bit of flavoring and garnish later on. Right now I just got done washing them. Everything's nice and clean. I'm looking to cut these at roughly about 1 centimeter on these green onions, and then once these are cut, we'll put these off to the side and we'll add these in later to the Bumbu Bali for some flavor and some for garnishing later on. So we've just removed the eggs from the boiling water, and we've already pre-peeled the eggs for the sake of saving time. Now we're gonna just cut one in half right now and see how it looks, just to see how it is looking. And perfect, hard-boiled egg. So what we're gonna do now with these other 8 eggs, we're gonna take them, we're gonna put them in the refrigerator, let them cool until we end up putting them in the Bumbu Bali later on.
Now that the eggs are done and that we have them in the refrigerator cooling, we're going to cook the chips. Now I've already started the chips. If you look on the tray here, you'll see what the shrimp chips look like, which we call krupuk. And we're going to make a few more to show you what the process is. So first of all, what you need is a nice thick cast iron pan, or you can use any other pan that will take the frying of the oil, because a thick pan works much better than a thin one. So now that we have the oil in there, we have it heated. It's at about 350 degrees. I want to show you what a full chip looks like. A full chip looks like this. And what I've done is I've broken them up into different little pieces. And the reason I do this, as you will see, as I drop one in, a couple into the oil, what happens? As you can see, these chips expand very rapidly, and they probably come out to about twice or 3 times their size. As I'm frying them, I'll flip them over a little bit. You want to make sure that they're cooked enough so they're not soft, but not so long that they'll burn, because they'll burn very easily. Now what I'll do is I'll do a few more here so you can kind of see how these chips react to the hot oil. This is about a half a chip, and we'll see the size that these come out to. Now be very careful, this oil is very hot. See, as you can see, it takes a matter of seconds. They start curling, and after they get done curling, they start expanding. And look at the size of these chips. And so what I'll do is I'll flip them so it gets the other side a little bit. They are very light and fluffy. And that's about it right there. Kind of drain the oil off of it. I put them in upside down. Take this other one. That was a half a chip, and that's why you cannot put a whole chip in there. It'll never fit in the pan. Now that the chips are done, we took the eggs out of the refrigerator, and now we're going to place them into the juice with the rest of the meat and the Bumbu Bali. The eggs will heat up in here also because the juice is the sauce I should say, is very hot. Now, we'll let that sit in there a little bit, heat up those eggs a little bit, and I put water in a pot, and I'm going to begin to make the rice.
So we just completed boiling the rice. We've now taken the white rice and we've starting to plate it. We just added the eggs a little while ago to the Bumbu Bali. They were in there for about 10 minutes. Total simmering time for the Bumbu Bali has been roughly about 2.5 hours, I believe. And so now we're at this point, we're getting ready to plate it up. So we have our rice here, and we are going to start
One
plating.
thing about the rice is use any rice that you prefer. We prefer using raw rice, and the long grain rice is what we like using. So, and that's why we boil it. So now that we have it, we're going to ladle some of the meat. Over the rice, like so. Can you push the other one over here, and we'll do the same thing there?
Yeah. Okay.
Then, let me take a fork out of here. One egg. Oops. One boiled egg. So.
Okay.
Sprinkle a
couple little green onions that we chopped up earlier. And then we have our
few chips on the side.
They're not called chips, they're called
Kupu.
Kupu.
And there you go.
And there you go. Bumbu Bali.
Hope you enjoyed this video. And
look forward to you next year.
Yes.
Next year for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage.